Hey guys, what's going on? This is Snoo. Hope you're doing well. Today, I'm bringing you a build showcase video to my very end game Tornado Shot Magic Find Deadeye, and we're bringing back the Break the Meta series from Scourge League, which I introduced a few different builds, Sublime Vision Tech, 3 different builds, 3 different ascendancies, 3 different auras on there. That was very cool, very different, and we're bringing it back today. Yes, breaking the meta with a Tornado Shot Magic Find Deadeye this league. Before you roll your eyes, I hope you hear me out. I got a list of different things that constitute, in my opinion, major deviations from the meta, either in previous leagues or this league especially. And I'm going to tell you all about that as a TLDR right up front. Then do a little bit of a map showcase like I always do. I'm not going to do a full map showcase. Maps are a little longer than usual this time, but just something to give you a nice clear-cut example in case this is your first time seeing this build. Hopefully that works for you. Then we'll get into the gear, the gems, the jewels, the passives, the path of building, and as a bonus favor to the end, because I keep getting a lot of questions asked about this build. A lot of people are impressed with a Tornado Shot build that can actually handle 10k plus juiced Abyss Legion farms. A lot of people wish they could farm Legion and Abyss together and do it relatively easily. As far as I know, my build is one of the only builds that is actually even able to do that fairly reliably. Even with, FPS drops down to almost nothing, truly having to tank a lot of damage, not on a Fulcrum build, not on a Detonate Dead build, but on a Glass Cannon Tornado Shot build. How in the world am I pulling all that off? I'm going to tell you in this video. Let's get started. So, first things first, what makes this build so cool? What makes it so tanky, so interesting, so off meta? I'm going to start by talking about alternate ailments. That is kind of the real big kicker of this build. I'm using Secrets of Suffering, the unique jewel from Delirium, turning off Freeze, Chill, Ignite, and Shock in favor of Scorch, Sap, and the other one, Brittle. That would be it. And a lot of ramifications to the build for that, but that is one of the core changes, one of the differences, one of the things you will normally never see on a build like this, especially in previous leagues. We're doing physical to element conversion. Nothing unusual about that, except it's not pure cold. It's tri-element. It's still Trinity, which means I had to convert kind of evenly between fire, lightning, and cold. Very unusual there to do that. No elemental mastery, which is the mastery in the passive skill tree that flips the resistances of monsters. Very powerful, very good, useful most builds, but because this has Scorch, it's not that useful. Some workarounds on that, like not accepting map mods that feature minus res monsters. That one can be pretty painful. But anyway, moving on, I'm using an Elegant Hubris instead of Lethal Pride. Lethal Pride is way more popular than Elegant Hubris in general, especially this league for double damage and all kinds of other things about it. But using Elegant Hubris, getting Supreme Ostentation, no attribute requirements, few other ramifications there. But that does change the build quite a bit. 2 Threads of Hope, not 1. A massive and a large Thread of Hope, partially because there's no Lethal Pride, so I was able to do that. Skitterbots. Using Skitterbots in the build. What kind of Tornado Shot build these days use Skitterbots? Pretty much nothing. But again, that's partially because of alternate ailments, so Skitterbots helps to cover the loss of Shock and Chill. No Purity of Elements because of the Storm Shroud through the Elegant Hubris. That whole thing. Fury of Nature. Fury of Nature, I haven't even used that. Forbidden Flesh Flame Jewel, you may not even know what it is. You can look it up. Fury of Nature is the Hidden Ranger Forbidden Flesh Flame combo jewel, and I'm using it. Haven't touched it since Sentinel League. Liked it back then, but it's kind of hard to justify using because it's not all that amazing when you have a very high-end build, unless the league presents you with extraordinarily tanky monsters that do not take maximum ailment threshold. And since we have 3 different ailments that I can benefit from, not 2 like usual because Ignite doesn't really count, that is a very powerful Forbidden Flesh Flame combo. So using that, point blank, not far shot. Most builds like this feature far shot, especially this league. Quite often they have knockback assisted with it, not doing any of that. This is a point blank Tornado Shot build. No mark on hit and no sniper's mark. So you probably saw this coming. Warlord's mark is kind of the specialty of this setup. Secrets of Suffering is to remove Freeze and Chill, which enables stun into the build. A lot of people were highly skeptical. People I trust and admire, very skeptical this league that Warlord's mark cast on crit tech would even work because monsters were so tanky. How are you ever going to stun anyone? Well, you're going to see in the build showcase, I'm going to have no problem stunning enemies on the regular, with or without the secret headhunter buff, stuns. Also, Berserk still in the build. That's why I'm using Warlord's Mark to get Berserk in the build. Tremendous uptime on that. Not 100% uptime, but very, very high uptime. 2 curses with a curse limit of 1. Perhaps one of the coolest things about the build, I'm able to squeeze in 2 curses, Warlord's Mark, and Punishment with a curse limit of 1. Do not need Whispers of Doom or a Corrupted Amulet, which we can't do with Simplex anyway. And last but not least, huge effective health on the build with some of the usual things like 100% spell suppression, Progenesis, Petrified Blood, 70 or 80 or 90% evasion, Immortal Call cast and damage taken, a lot of different things there that were quite often represented in a build, but also on top of that, getting full ailment threshold sap, that's an additional 20% less damage taken, Berserk with a high uptime, and Debilitate, which comes through Punishment. And so those are 3 additional things. We also, on a side point, get Adrenaline this league, but actually everybody basically gets Adrenaline this league. So much more tanky than normal, much more tanky than the average Deadeye this league, and much faster. Not necessarily much more damage, but definitely much faster, much tankier, and consequently able to do Abyss farms on very high end juice, as well as Legion at the same time. So that is the TLDR. That is what I'm going to be showing you today. Those are going to be our kind of focus points. And again, the summary revolves around alternate ailments combined with Warlord's Mark cast on crit, effectively granting me way more tankiness than usual. All right, so there she is, right here. We're going to go in, do a map. And let's get right in here. I already got a map set up. Now, the nice thing about this is I don't have some crazy off-the-wall juice map. I literally made sure I didn't have that because I don't want to drop the FPS down to nothing in this showcase. This is a decent map. That's 7K. Honestly, a little bit afraid I'm going to lag because I've been sitting in this map for over an hour now trying to prep this video. Get ready for it. So, please bear with me. Anyway, I'm going to kick it off in here. I want to spawn the influence. Ooh, FPS drop a little there, more than it should, for this amount of juice in the map. Don't care about divination. Duplication on this map, but I guess I'll take Gilded Legion. That's a pretty rare one. Alright, moving back through, getting some Headhunter buffs, not using Mage Blood also. I mean, Mage Blood is not actually meta, but kind of is, to my, in my opinion here. Getting some really bad altars. But anyway, I like opening the altars here. I already got a Soul Eater, so that's going to be easy. Not really paying attention to the altar mods. The only one that's really bad for me is the one that reduces recovery per endurance charge. I have 4 endurance charges in my build. Normally you'd only have 3, and that can be a real problem, especially if it rolls really high. All the abysses here, I think I'm just going to run like, I don't know, 1, maybe 2 abysses. I'll show you at least 1 Legion and 1 abyss so you can get some sense. But again, I got content all over YouTube right now with, me doing highlight, different kind of, amazing runs, different maps. 13K Juice map had a map that had crazy amount of conversions. We got all the 100 map series with highlights in there. So much different, so many different examples of this build functioning in there. You can always check that out if you want a much more comprehensive look at the build. But anyway, it is build showcase video. I'm not going to leave you wanting for more, especially if this is your first time seeing it. I feature a weapon swap that is Leap Slam, gives me Fortify among a few other things. Not really part of the build, but definitely helps with the Abyss. And you see me kind of weapon swapping, Leaping Slamming, get Fortify, even Innervate when I do that. Following this Abyss around, hopefully the Spire spawns now. I simply don't just kill it ASAP. I'm watching for it. Okay, Leap Slamming around, use all the flasks again. Let us spawn 3. And we get in here and basically holding right click. Oh, nice Divine Orb conversion. Lucky there. You see, I could have died there. It's possible, but yeah, with this amount of juice, not very likely. We'll go ahead and do a Legion now. See which way it spawned. Maybe. Okay, I might miss this because unfortunately Berserk does not open when you, or Berserk does not go off when you start in stasis, so it's one tiny little downside doing Legion, but anyway, not terrible, so I was able to open the Legion anyway. And there you go. I think we're just gonna end it there. That was a nice clean Abyss, nice clean Legion. I opened it all, so that's it. I will deal with the rest of that map later. I want to get through the build showcase, get it done in one take. That would be great. Save me a lot of time. Let's start with the gear. I don't know where that came from, but get that out of here. So just as a point, as a backup piece of gear, Defiance of Destiny is really good if this league, because we have some issues with survivability and recovery with Progenesis and Petrified Blood. Recovery can be an issue even with a bunch of instant leech, which I have. So I like to start a map off with this Defiance of Destiny if I'm in the middle of the map, already clicked a bunch of altars if it's juiced up. And when I finish this map, I will be putting Defiance of Destiny back on temporarily to help me ramp back up to Headhunter buff. Just a side point, that is kind of a piece of gear that's not really core to this build, but it's included in there. First off, we're going to start with a few mirrored items. Again, this build budget's around 20 mirrors. There are a few items that are kind of outrageous. I'm going to show you where you can get a lot of discounts for relatively keeping most of the power at the end of this video. But for now, we have Agony Thunder. This bow was created by someone who is no longer playing the league. There are a lot of these floating around. You really want 200% increase attribute requirement for the full 15% increase explicit fizz modifiers. It's one of the advantages to running Elegant Hubris and the Caspero. There, I believe this is the best bow for the build in the league right now. However, interestingly, while this does have a crit roll, we don't really need it. We don't really need crit. Crazy enough, I think I could get away with double damage. So a perfect bow would have double damage instead of crit chance, which would be kind of crazy, huh? All right. Now, we got the quiver, which you do not want convert. So this is also created by the same user, I believe. And I don't know, maybe I heard Spicy Sushi has a quiver also, but anyway, this is, I think, the best one with the Fizz's extra random element, and fire is very helpful to make a Trinity work on this build. We'll see why. I think I'll go ahead and point out here in a minute here. We'll get to Trinity, but I don't want to forget. You will notice that the damage on the low end of cold is lower than the high end of fire by a reasonable amount, and that is how Trinity is still able to work here, and that's through some conversions here on the other pieces of gear. But anyway, this is basically the perfect quiver. Projectile speed, you don't want to increase mark, you could have that instead, but basically perfect implicit, perfect quiver. Of course, those two items were both a mirror, the bow and the quiver. Now, the gloves, since I was just talking about the conversion, I made these own gloves myself. I would like to use the cold temple mod, not getting a whole lot of value out of the shocked temple mod, but still getting some thanks to Skitterbots, at least in the initial attack before brittle is even on there. Get intimidated into the build is really nice. Normally we used to run Calm Spirit here, but now that's out of the question. It's not very powerful, and using Warlord's Mark instead to grant a whole bunch of rage. I wanted Chaos Res, definitely need some Chaos Res, needed the Suppress, could get that on the Charms if I wanted, but anyway, these are the gloves I went for. Also need accuracy somewhere, a huge accuracy roll, so let's move on over to the helmet. Rarity is not that necessary on here. Honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea to skip out on the Janus mod and go for something else, like maybe Lightning Res, and then get the Cold Res one Temple mod, but at any rate, this is what I got here. I like it a lot. I got this helmet done. It's very nice, and really want the reduced mana cost of attacks. People have talked about, what about the 7% quant helmet? You know, I suppose if I were able to select the exact 6 mods I want, all tier 1, with the double implicit, reservation, and quant, maybe that would be better. But the problem is reduced mana costs, and to get around that, I would have to take a suffix somewhere in one of these flasks, which I could do. So technically, maybe the quant helmet is a better choice. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but yeah, let's move on. Next, we got the gloves, Gold Worm. Now, this is a phenomenal double corruption. Doesn't have to be this one. Yeah, so you can also get +1 socketed gems and no longer need an Awaken Enlighten 5. You can just do an Enlighten 4, so that'll be one huge discount point we'll mention later on. But I like 10% movement speed and extra endurance charge, so I'm going to use these. Also got Headhunter. I should have a 5% quant Headhunter right now. I'm just kind of stalling, not getting it yet. It's definitely the next upgrade. You can count on this. So this is, ironically, Headhunter is by far the cheapest piece of gear that I have on it if it's not corrupted, and it's actually pretty funny, isn't it? Got an absolute S-tier Ventor's Gamble here. Really need a 3 high res in order to handle the resistance issues. How much resist do I have? I mean, look at this. I'm not much over cap. with this res and a Calandra's Touch. So, you know, very tight squeezing the build here. I mean, I bought this for a mirror, I think. It's obviously worth more than a mirror. Now, the gloves, the helmet, and the boots, or the gloves and the helmet together are maybe a mirror. The boots, yeah, probably a mirror with that double corruption. And I mean, I don't even want to know what this Ventor is worth nowadays with the market drying up. Let's move on to the chest. Now, this has been a very popular chest, and you do not have to have this double corruption, but you absolutely need to have reduced extra damage from critical strikes. Do not need +1 socketed gems, but the reason for that is the Awaken Enhanced support we'll talk about in just a moment. Calandra's Touch, self-explanatory. The Simplex is one I made. I made a whole video on this. It cost about a mirror to make. It now is actually worth over a mirror, and a lot of people requested a mirror on this amulet, so that's fine. Pretty self-explanatory. If it's not to you, go watch the video. I already have a YouTube video on how I crafted this, and it was painful. Very, very much the pain pendant by the name. All right, next we have a few flasks. Jade Flask, no rarity flask. Might as well have Jade Flask. I think I have around 90% evasion, counting blind and, you know, everything up. Not 95, but 90, so that's good. Here, I used to run Warden of the Magi, which is good, and, you know, there's a little bit of a different take. I like Detect Evil, the Affliction ascendancy there, but Charms definitely is stronger for this build, I will say. However, there's going to be a second build I'm sure you might have seen in the thumbnail. There's a second character, which nobody knows about yet, which I will be reverting back to Warden of the Magi, so looking forward to sharing that with you in a future video, in a few days, anyway. Taste of Hate, very strong for this build. If you can manage Trinity with the increased Fizz as extra cold, can be a bit problematic, but I was able to fit it in anyway. I really like the extra defense there. So the Jade Flask, Taste of Hate, a lot of extra defense. The Warden of the Magi allowed it a 30% increased effect of Progenesis, was also a huge amount of defense that way. So, I mean, both ends work pretty well. Quicksilver, now able to get reduced effective curses. That's like 98% reduced effective curses. When an increased effect is taken into account. And then Divination Distillate works very well because it's driven down by the Life Tap Mana Forge link, which I'll get to in just a second. Let's go ahead and do the gem links now. So for Tornado Shot here, we got Tornado Shot, we got Trinity support. If you have Trinity up, that's one of the best damage mods. Elemental damage with attack support, Awakened, Vicious projectile support, also just doing more damage. It seemed to be one of the strongest ones, even with the loss of attack speed there. Inspiration support, need it for the reduced attack cost all the way down to 12. I don't want to pay much more than 12 mana per attack on that. And you know, that's just the helmet and inspiration working together. It does end up being worse, less, I guess, once we get that going there. Or maybe not. Anyway, Awaken Enhanced support, level 6. Now, I do not think Enhanced support is worth it unless you're able to get level 6. This allows me to go from 4 to 6 secondary projectiles. You'll notice I don't have chain support, I don't have fork support, Awakened or whatever. Those are good in their own right. They cause a lot of lag and a lot of needless FPS. I feel like this one causes much less undue FPS drop than the others, and it definitely contributes to more damage, not on paper, but in practicality, it does equal a lot more damage, a lot more secondary projectiles, a lot more likely to targets to get hit single target by each individual projectile with at least one secondary projectile hitting them. Much better single target. Better, it is good for clear, obviously. If I wasn't using this gem, I would be using increased critical damage support or Mirage Archer if I wasn't doing Abyss. So, that is all for the Tornado Shot length. We have the Frenzy of Onslaught. Now, I would prefer to get Onslaught more authentically, but, you know, this is kind of a workaround, taking advantage of the new Transfigured Gem here. It does allow Frenzy. Frenzy definitely not keeping up 100%, but Onslaught's pretty much 100%. We've got Mana Forge arrows. We've got Life Tap support. This is what helps drive down drive down the Divination Distillate, so it doesn't stay capped out. Huge help with that because it's going off for Frenzy of Onslaught, it's going off for Warlord's Mark and Punishment, which are going out a lot. That's a lot of life being spent through the Awaken cast on Critical Strike support. This is 2 curses, 1 link, 1 curse setup, and that's because they are set up in the same link the mark takes priority over punishment. So it is a full aura area of effect cast with life, means it's going off constantly all over the place. Basically, all the enemies on the screen are constantly punished. Then the Warlord's Mark triggers individually like a little light on each individual monster. Quite often hits a monster with very low life. I'm able to stun it, get a whole bunch of Rage Berserk. It will sometimes hit higher health monsters. I get a ton of Leech from Warlord's Mark, as you can see. I got instant Leech in the build, and it's going to be a lot of stun. I get endurance charges in the build this way, extremely reliably. I have a lot of evasion, making this work incredibly well in conjunction with the Mortal Call cast when damage taken. Humongous effective health there with this setup. Sniper's Mark is great. It really is. And I'm not saying you can't use Sniper's Mark, but definitely this is a fundamental deviation from the meta as far as how people typically build a tornado shot Magic Find Deadeye. This is something I really like, and I think it's going to be even stronger into your future leagues when we definitely don't need the added clear that Sniper's Mark gives. And we'll be focusing more on speed, just speed in general. Run speed, attack speed, everything. So, I already mentioned Mortal Call cast and damage taken, so let's move on to this one. We also got Berserk, obviously need that in there somewhere, and Summon Skitterbots. So, I have Skitterbots here because, you know, I need a 5-link or a setup if I'm going to work with the Enlighten support. This has an Awaken Enlighten 5, can be Awaken 4 with a +1 Socketed Corruption on the boots, so humongous discount there if you're looking for a discount. And then we got Grace, Petrified Blood, Hatred, you know, all level 6 Awakening Gems, all level 2120 regular gems, of course. Up here we got Precision connected to Arrogant Support, Vitality, and Dread Banner, and that works out here with the Mastery, reduce life reservation by 20%. Of course, that's in there. So that is it for the links, I believe. Now, the jewels. For the jewels, let's see, we'll get the Threads of Hope out of the way. I still don't have this corrupted. I usually have this corrupted by now, but it's not. I'm not sure what I want on it. Probably reduced effective curse, or I don't know, increased effective elemental ailments. Anyway, percent damage. But anyway, this is here, getting huge amount of value out of this, obviously, as usual. Now, most people have a Lethal Pride in the Ranger tree right here, but a large wheel is extremely strong, or they would have Inspired Learning if they were using Mage's Blood. But here instead, I get to use the large wheel. Very cool, getting the very efficient Master Fletcher, multi-shot, getting Aspect of the Eagle for 1 point. You know, these two for just 1 point. Primeval Force for 1 point, which works out very well in conjunction with just getting Forces of Nature, and then not particularly prioritizing the Elemental Mastery, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video, because we have Scorch in the build, so we don't get nearly as much value out of the Elemental Mastery. It makes a lot of sense to use a large wheel here and just get this for very cheap for 1 point. On a side point, Perfectionist is very strong if you don't have stun immunity. I do have stun immunity effectively, but it's going to be very hard for most people to get that. I get that through the charm, which we'll look at, I suppose, here in a moment, since it kind of counts as a jewel. Also have 2 1 passive voices. Yeah, people ask about, wait a minute, that's like 3 mirrors per 1 passive voices. Yep, and, you know, farmed for them and wanted them and got to acquire Fury of Nature for that and not have to even worry about maximum ailment threshold thanks to doing that. But if you don't have 2 1 passive voices, you can just do 2 8 passive large clusters, drop Fury of Nature entirely, settle for, you know, 1/3 to half effectiveness of your Secrets of Suffering, Sap, Scorch, Brittle. Still comes out alright. Still alright, but definitely this is a better setup to do this. Also getting that which was taken. They got this a long time ago for way cheaper than you'd think, and you know, it wasn't really on anyone's radar. The movement speed, while cannot be modified down below base value, I think is extremely strong in Delirium against Delirium hands, as well as a few other things. It doesn't affect everything though. It doesn't affect like Grasping Vines, for example. That one's still because of its action speed, it doesn't work. But the Fizz is extra random element, very powerful in the Trinity. Probably is a workaround for that. I don't necessarily need to have this on here. I get the power charge on crit. There are like 101 different ways to get power charge and crit in the build, but it's obviously the most convenient to do it here. Because I got adrenaline right here, let's go ahead and get the charms out of the way, I guess, real quick. Yeah, it would be... Hold up. There we go. So, the charms. I waited and swapped over to the Primalist until I had essentially 6 mirrors invested into charms. Here's where I get the stun immunities. Cannot be stunned while leeching. I no longer run maps where you cannot leech. Get the instant leech over here. And then I have this with the extra projectile. I got 3 with extra projectile. And then you probably saw this coming, blind as well as phasing. Without the phasing, I have to spend 2 points to get here. Without the blind, I just deal with having less effective evasion. I have basically the same amount of hit, but it is nice on maps where I have reduced accuracy, or less accuracy actually. For the Elegant Hubris, it's the same seed I've used the last league or 2. Absolutely phenomenal. You'd be surprised how much damage percent projectile attack damage gives relative to, say, 5% double damage off of a Lethal Pride. It's pretty crazy. It's a lot more DPS than just 5% double damage. But I only got 2 of them, and I got a couple of rarities, and honestly, wouldn't be a bad idea to just drop rarity completely. I'm going to get it for 1 point, but could perhaps look for a different seed. And in the spirit of trying to look for a discount, you're probably not going to go for the seed. I didn't look to see what it's worth, if there are even that exist. But this is one of those things, you know, a streamer uses a particular seed. It's impossible to find. Fortunately, there are a lot of different seeds that are good here, including some that give you power charge and crit. Actually, that's pretty awesome. Really kind of want the instant leech. Can do without it, but really kind of want it. Anyway, Supreme Ostentation, so I no longer need like a 12 passive large cluster with attributes or whatever. My attributes are 71 int, 132 strength. So, really just absolutely in the clear there. And then we got the Watcher's Eye, which you don't have to have these 3 mods, but unfortunately, without the 8 passive clusters, I don't have any leech. Well, I do have it on Warlord's Mark, but really kind of need it here. I have ran with the Life on Hit Vitality one, but if I were to only have 2 mods on here, it would be % Leech and Cold Conversion. I would drop the Evasion one, as a matter of fact. Forbidden Flame Flesh is here, and I think, oh yeah, Storm Shroud here in conjunction with, there it is, 80% chance to avoid shock. Got a nice Spike Concoction jewel here, and Pressure Points Quick Getaway is pretty good too. Because that helps increase the ailment threshold of your attacks when occasionally they do double damage. They're basically critting all the time, so that is really nice to have. As far as charms, we're already done with that. So I think that concludes the jewels, but we're just going to move straight into the passives, which we kind of touched on already. Just a quick recap here. We got a couple of 80% projectile ones. We got 80%, so we got 160% increased projectiles, 15% increased attack speed, 80% increased rarity, 80% chance to avoid shock, and Supreme Ostentation for pretty good efficient point allocation. Over here we got the Charisma wheel, of course, 20% life efficiency of skills to help with Divination Distillate to give us some room, still being able to run Dread Banner. Through the massive wheel, I was able to grab all kinds of really good things, as well as the Elegant Hubris pieces, Forces of Nature, Quick Step, over here, Hired Killer, even Harrier. Harrier is the least, if I were to drop a single point, Harrier would be the first point to go. But I do like the movement speed. Actually, no, sorry, this Mastery would be the first point to go. Really started to feel better when I prioritized a little bit of movement speed in the build. It helped a lot, of course. So yeah, a couple of, you know, cheeky points in here, right there. Perfectionist still here for some movement speed and can help assist with the shock issues. Before I forget, Pantheon is right here. This is actually the Pantheon setup I like to use with the Abyss lagging issues. This is a lot of extra effective health between Soul of Lunaris and Soul of Tukohama. If I'm not running a Burning Ground map, very, very strong for just sort of effective, oops, I'm lagging, please don't die defense. There, great Pantheons. Moving on. Let's see, we already talked about that. Before I forget, let's do the Ascendancy. Now, this is typical looking Ascendancy, except I don't have Far Shot, right? Because I'm using Point Blank. Now, you can use both at the same time, but I don't have the room to get all those, and I'm using a different Forbidden Flame Flesh dual combo. I think this is the best setup for the build. We're going to go ahead and embrace the shotgun effect of Tornado Shot. Yes, I know this can do less damage at range, at cover, or whatever, but I don't really care about that, because I do plenty of damage anyway. The only time I really, really want more damage is in a moment where there's some Legion boss or something that's still alive, and I've got to kill it. So the best way to kill it is to walk right up to it and shotgun it down ASAP. Works excellently with point blank. And then we also have kind of, some points down here. I'm a big believer in increased flask effect. Of 20% increased flask effect total, counting natural remedies, and a couple points here. Finesse is maybe not the most important point, but it's still pretty strong, I felt, so could drop that one as well. Okay, we got some of the usuals here. Very high value 1 point. Moving on over this way, I got all the life nodes. All the life nodes I could get. You can see every single life node is acquired over here. Hired killer, not necessarily the small nodes, but the big ones. Can't get this one over here though. As far as crit, Heartseeker is in play. Reduced extra damage from critical strikes. Gotta take it. I have 80% reduced damage, not 100%, just 80%, and it seems to be enough, even on 13k juice maps. So happy to see that. Wasn't sure if that would work out. Works out pretty well for me so far. And then of course we're doing lethality with the stronger option there with the workaround, and then of course King of the Hill, getting all the value there. Got to get that for the bow mastery. Got tons of projectile speed, which you will be able to see in the calculations. Got 102% suppress chance, I think, with just, with none of it on gear. Or wait, sorry, I misspoke. None of it on charms or jewels. All of it on gear with a helmet and gloves. And then, these points here. So you could drop suppress on a gear piece if you get it on charm, for example. I like the increased flask duration here in effect. I think it's really important. And long shot's very, very good for tornado shot. Here, yeah, we already talked about all the jewels. I think I've basically covered everything now. +1 max frenzy would be pretty nice, but I just decided not to do it. And yeah, I believe that's it. Get thick skin, all that here. So, yep, that's it. Could get, maybe it would be wise. It probably would be wise to put 1 point right here in mana leech, because I have 0 mana leech. But I do get mana on hit if I've used the flask lately. If the flask is on, it doesn't matter. But I do anticipate it would probably be wise to take this point and maybe drop Harrier or this one here. Anyway, I'm going to leave it as it is for now. You can make that choice for yourself. That's going to be it for the passives. Hope we're making good time here. Dropping you down to the path of building. We're going to spend a little extra time in the path of building because I got to show you something at the very end. It's going to help you guys try to achieve this build on a budget, so to speak, relatively speaking. Here on the calculations, we can once again see, now I think this number is misleading because of Fizz gained his extra random element on the quiver or something like that, or on the jewel, but you can see even here, still the top end of fire is higher than the lower end of cold, but it looks way closer. Trinity works fine so far with this setup, but do monitor that, make sure it's working well. Projectile speed is pretty insane. Let's see if we can find that 2.62. I don't even have the mastery for it. Could get that, but you don't actually get more damage from it at all. Quantity and rarity, 90%, 299. That doesn't count the Janus mod, which is effectively 60% increased rarity. So nice, 90% increased quantity. It will be 95 when I get the new belt on there. As far as the hit damage, I mean, look at the full DPS is right here. We'll get into the config in a second. I do want you to pay close attention to the effective hit pool. Now, when I set up these builds, I usually have the same effective hit pool. Most leagues, I have around 40 to 60,000 effective hit pool. So I know numbers can be misleading, but I also know because I set up the same build and quite often do a similar build almost every league at the end game. This build is at least 3 times tankier than my usual build in just a typical juiced up, I don't know, the Delhi Mirror T16 map. And it has to be to survive, the crazy onslaught of 10k plus juiced abyss with FPS drops, right? You have to, if you're going to run tornado shot that way, it's got to be crazy, pretty crazy. We got a lot of evasion. You can kind of just glance at some of the numbers. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on here. It's got a lot of recovery. Vitality, even on the back end, helps with Desecrate Ground, even Burning Ground if I forget the Pantheon swap. But this will change a little bit when, for example, we drop Immortal Call. So Immortal Call is not always up, but now the effective hit pool is 69k, and this is going to be a little bit more accurate to the realistic effective hit pool. And you can see that I can still take a Fizz damage hit of almost 30k, and pretty solid there. Chaos is a bit under here, only 28% res, so I would like more chaos res. I could get it on the Elegant Hubris, as a matter of fact. But anyway, just trying to be a little more transparent about more or less realistic effective health there. Berserk's not always up, by the way, but you can see, you know, that that's pretty wildly strong effective health for a character like this. As far as the config is concerned, again, the major minor gods there, everything is basically maxed out as far as in-combat buffs, even with 1,000 Rampage. There's Invictus weapon swap, which is, you know, this setup right here. And that is these jewels right here. Hold on, wait. Ah, there we go. Forgot what there. There it is. Okay, these jewels right here. And I made a separate video on this setup, so you can watch that separate video if you would like. Anyway, back to the config. 1,000 Rampage shields, Innervate. Those are from weapon swapping. You know, live tap active, onslaught phasing, even fortify on. Wouldn't necessarily be on, but actually is typically on in the most vulnerable moment during an abyss, as you can see how I played it. Tailwind, Adrenaline, Alchemist, Genius, always leeching, maximum rage. Berserk is on, crit recently. Full Scorch, Brittle, Sap. Shotgun distance on projectiles. I mean, everything is capped to the brim, so I show that to you because I try to be transparent. I like posting numbers this way, not to mislead you, but to help you understand exactly where, you know, how you can config something so you can see the full picture of the potential of a build, and then, you know, drop it down from there. You start unchecking things if you think, actually, show me what I want to see what it does if I don't blind the enemy. What happens if the enemy's not debilitated? How much does that affect my health? You can do that. The path building's in the description below, so you can do that to your liking. All right, so that is basically it. I think everything's here. We got 11 projectiles in the build right here. 11 projectiles, so that's where that number is coming from. As you can see, that has a huge impact on the damage. Not so much on this side, but still good. All right, so final thing to point out to you is high budget. This is my current build, final build, essentially. Just trying to get quant corruptions there. We're going to drop everything down to lower budget. And again, I hope you appreciate this. I took a lot of extra time to manage this, and suddenly there's some major changes going on. We have now dropped the 3 mirror 1 passive voices. That's like 6 mirrors discount right there. We have dropped the double corruption in the chest. That's at least 2 or 3 mirrors there. The Ventors is still kind of crazy, but you know, you could definitely get away with less there. We have now changed the corruption on the boots so that we don't have to run an Awaken level 5. I don't know how many mirrors that saves. Also running a that which was taken jewel with only adrenaline, so saved some mirrors there for sure. Elegant Hubris, different seed. Now, you know, it doesn't matter if I showcase a seed, it's just going to get expensive anyway. But the point is, you don't have to have my exact Elegant Hubris seed to make this work, and that's going to be a huge discount there. No longer have amazing prefix and suffix charms, just additional proj, saving at least 2 mirrors on each charm there. I don't even think that's it. I think that's almost everything. I probably forgot like one other thing with a major discount. But anyway, that pretty much covers it. I'm using now 2 8 passive clusters. A heavy hitter is good here for the Warlord's Mark proccing here. Better than Martial Prowess, I would say. Still get to keep by concoction, or sorry, not that. Sorry, pressure points. Again, actually really important here. Without Fury of Nature, you really want to have the double damage, at least 5% in there. Also had to pick up phasing. Blind has just been straight up removed from the build. Fury of Nature is straight up removed from the build. Watcher's Eye is also cheaper, only 2 mods. So that was something I forgot. That which was taking jewel to your picking. You can get 3 proj, adrenaline, and you just fill in the blanks with some of the rest things, you know, just a lot cheaper. Or you could actually get 2 proj charms, 1 adrenaline charm, and then that which was taking jewel that has none of those. And you can probably find one for fairly cheap that has 4 great mods, including things like Power Charge and Crit, Fizz's extra damage, you know, some of the other mods that I had, Instant Leech, you know, all kinds of different things. You'll notice there is no Instant Leech on this one, but, you know, I do recommend trying to get Instant Leech on the build somewhere. Very good to have that somewhere if you can. But anyway, basically everything else is pretty much the same. You know, kind of lost 2 points here, saved a point here, saved a few points here and there. Just had to work around, but it's still a level 100 build, of course. And by golly, that is it. I think that's it, guys. Finally got through it all. All right, so hopefully you understand the build pretty well. I am going to get back into that map and finish it before all my portals disappear. I don't want to lose all that money to be made. So always like doing that. This has been a great league for me. You know, floating mirrors, being able to invest something like 20 divines into the build. If you ask me what I think of this league, yeah, it's a little out of control. Obviously, not every league should be like this, but as a one-off thing, it's a lot of fun. I'm probably gonna play just about the whole league, maybe not the entire league. So I got one more build I want to show you that I haven't shown anybody. I haven't even shown myself. In fact, I don't even have the gear for it yet. But it'll be another tornado shot magic find Deadeye. Not quite meta. Not quite meta. So stay tuned for that. But this one is definitely by far the greatest deviation from the meta, and it's worked out terrifically. Really proud of how this build turned out, and been loving the comments when people come into the chat and they're saying, how in the world are you this tanky? How are you this tanky? Like, I've seen the build from other players, not that tanky. I have a different build, about the same budget, nowhere near as tanky. Can't do Abyss, blah, 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 blah. So give this build a try. If you have the budget, I think it's still gonna be about 4 or 5 mirrors to get it in there. But again, this league is nuts, guys. Pains me to say, 4 or 5 mirrors is actually not that crazy amount of currency this league. If you're already magic finding at this point, month and a half into the league, a lot of people have that budget already, and you know, divines just flying out of the map, just spitting divines out of the map, and even mirrors to a certain extent. That's it for now. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And we'll see you in a video right around the corner.